Hello there! I would like to inform you that what you are about to listen to are the views and comments of the host and the guests only. They do not reflect the views of the community as a whole. Also, side effects of listening to this podcast might include headache, cardiac arrhythmia, nausea, an increase in blood pressure, temporary insanity, permanent insanity, involuntary cursing, shouting, hemorrhoids, spontaneous combustion, abdominal larvae, zombie reanimation, and a permanent loss of faith in mankind. Anyway, I hope you enjoy the podcast. Eddie, do your banter section.
You excited for Japan?
Yeah, I'm very excited. Well, that was probably like so loud. I'm sorry. I'm very excited. I've been slowly just like getting all the admin done. I'm really mad though because they're changing all the rules on the 1st of March, and it's like cool. I've had all these like anxiety stress dreams for no reason. Well, no, I'm not for no reason because obviously I'm going next week. But like, they couldn't have brought it forward like a month.
But who's going to be like doing all the mad photo shooting every weekend if you're not doing it?
Well, I have a tank shoot the day before I fly.
Oh my god!
So, still me.
Are you out of your mind? What happens if you drown?
Well, I don't go to Japan, I guess. It's fine. I go there in spirit. No, it'll be fine. I'm not drowned yet.
You will be.
God, don't jinx me.
You will be a spirit. You know that. You will be a spirit. Jesus Christ.
I'm very excited because we're flying non-stop for the first time ever. And it's like a luxury for me. And at like 30, flying non-stop is going to be a game changer.
you are always non-stop. You know that. Suits your personality.
Take that as a compliment.
Hello everybody, this is the Ed Talks About podcast, our weekly podcast talking about Comic-Con, cosplay, and everything else. I'm your host Eddie. This week we are talking about Can We Shoot TFP? What does that mean? What does TFP stand for? Are there more than one meaning for TFP? Who knows? Anyway, joining us on the podcast is Kev Pax from Kev Photography. No, Kev Pax Photography? Shit, I put Kevin down, but I forgot everything else afterwards.
Go for Kevin Pack Photography.
Yeah. Or the guy that runs cosplay.co.uk. And we got Lydia of Celery Moon Cosplay. No, Celery Moon Design. My God, I'm shit at this.
No, you're not.
I'm going back to sleep now. Goodbye.
That was a quick podcast.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. It's been great. My socials, you can find me on
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Well,
Play the outro.
Talking about the most clickbait podcast. It's only a minute long. What? Oh no! Just to properly, Kev Pack Photography and Celery Moon Design.
That was close.
It was close. Yeah. How are you two? Hang on, ladies first. Lydia, how's the last 7 days for you?
Oh, chaotic, very chaotic. But I'm like excited to be on the podcast and not delirious with illness. So hopefully I'll be coherent this time.
Yes, because last time you were talking about fast fashion. Relative to when it's released at the beginning of this year, but we recorded that last year, which then it occurred to me we could have recorded that another time. You didn't have to be on that one, but I really appreciate your appearance. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're well, but you're less delirious now, but still as mad as a hatter.
yeah, I'm just coherently mad now.
Oh, God, that's good. I
think so.
Yeah. Kev, it's going to be weird me asking this, but how's the last 7 days for you? Because I technically know at least 2 of those days.
Yeah, only said goodbye to you about this time yesterday.
Literally this time yesterday, yes. I was on the road. Back.
Yeah, it was hell. I had this little Asian chap staying with me. I don't know. It's a bit weird.
Don't talk about James like that. Just to say that's James Bissett, okay? James Bissett Photography. We're all together. We were all invited to a photo shoot day.
That was at Montrose, right?
Yeah.
It looked cool. It looked very cool.
Don't give the game away, all right?
Oh, sorry. I mean, undisclosed location.
Or Montrose.
Where Eddie loves to shoot.
It does indeed.
I do love that shoot so much. I mean, if that was a little bit closer to London, I'd be happier. I'd be a lot happier. But I mean, Kev, before the weekend, you've been busy. You've been keeping up. You just enjoying life.
I'm surviving, just
Yeah,
recovering for Christmas. I think more than anything else. But it's obviously a bit of a quiet time this time of year after all the busyness around Christmas. Really. What
yeah.
What about yourself? How have you been?
I've got a bit of a niggly cough, so I have to mute myself every so often just to make sure that I don't pick it up on the record. So if I do go quiet, it's not because I've died, or probably have died, but yeah, this cough is not COVID related. It's just a normal flu cough type of thing.
It's just your
Uh,
general illness.
yeah, just general illness. But no, I'm doing all right. I had a real fun time at Montrose over the weekend. So hopefully people will get to see those results in about maybe 3 months time from now. Like,
That's quite quick.
I still haven't sorted them through yet. I still need to go through those photos. Might do that after this when I've recorded this podcast. But anyway, we're not talking about. Well, technically it relates, but we might bring that story that shoot into this week's conversation. So this week's conversation is about TFP. Now, some of you may go, "Oh, I know what TFP is." Some people may go, "What the hell is TFP?" So let's go this way out. Let's do this. Kev, in your mind, what does the acronym TFP stands for, and what does it mean to you?
But people say it's either time for prints or time for photos. It's basically, as far as what I understand it and how I feel about it, is when a photographer and a subject collaborate together to create some pictures. So the photographer is not playing the cosplayer, and the cosplayer is not playing the photographer. They're just working together. Does that make sense?
Makes sense to me. Lydia, what about you? Is there something that you relate to that, or is it something you want to add on top of that?
I always thought it was trade for prints, so I am learning something new already.
Yeah, well, that's it. There's like, some people say trade, some say time, some say print, some say photos. There's also TFCD, which is trade for CDs, when you used to put pictures onto CD.
Oh wow!
But obviously it predates people doing things digitally as well. Really.
Yeah. Same thing. It's when you collaborate as a model or a cosplayer with a photographer or a videographer, and you both walk away with what you want for your portfolio.
Mm. But basically, no money is exchanged at this point. Or at any point really.
No.
It's a mutual beneficial between model and photographer. Now, I could go to Wikipedia and actually read it out, but just to confirm, time for print, trade for print, time for pics or photos, all the same thing. They're all the. I swear, Kev is reading the same Wikipedia pages that I am, because he mentioned TFCD and I can see it in bold. I'm not going, that's weird.
No, it's just I've been doing TF stuff for a long time. I always call it TF because it doesn't really matter, does it? And that's why people call it TFP, because it doesn't really, if people understand that it's just working for free, basically, then does it matter what it stands for?
Yeah,
100%, 100%. So if you were to go Google what TFP stands for, if you want a more comprehensive meaning, but Lydia, you're probably the best candidate that I know that does a lot of, in a sense, TFP shoots. So, well, you're doing a shoot every fucking moment. The moment you wake up, the moment you sleep, I swear I see you doing another shoot. I don't know if you got a real job or not.
I do have a real job. It's a really tough job as well. So the cosplay allows me to escape from the bullshit I have to deal with daily.
Don't talk about escapism. I tried to record a podcast like that in the last episode and I failed completely. It just became a self-indulgent dissection of my own mental state, I think. I'm not even kidding you. It became an intervention type of podcast. But anyway, again, as I keep saying, these podcasts are not about me. Anyway, so TFP shoots. What are your experience of a TFP shoot? How are they? Do you treat it any different to a paid shoot type of thing?
Yeah, I guess slightly. I think with trade for prints, I don't know, because I've had good experiences and I've had really bad experiences with TFP. But then you could say the similar with paid as well, because like on both occasions I've done paid and a TFP shoot where I did not get the photos. So like that's the worst case scenario, is that you do a shoot, you spend your time, you spend your money getting there, and you do all like the getting ready and making the cosplay and stuff like that, and then you don't get photos. But for the most part, they're very similar experiences, other than I think the expectations with a paid shoot is that I will get the photos within a certain time that's been agreed. But apart from that, I think they're very similar, because I think I'm just a bit more lenient with trade for print, because I realise that, paid work is more important to the photographer. So yeah, I'm a bit more like, it's okay, I don't mind waiting, because it's an agreement between the two of you.
So, but there's really not much difference between, in your eyes, a paid shoot to a TFP shoot, because again, you do so many, and this is not a dig at you. I don't mean it, but you do so much. But is it something that you look forward to do because you feel like it benefits both of you?
I guess it's not really. I guess it is a benefit, but it's because you're getting photos of something and I'm not paying for it. But like, I still expect the same amount of like kind of work and quality, because I'm still bringing the same amount of work and quality. Yeah, so it's not that different, I guess, because the only thing that isn't different is that money isn't exchanging hands. So for me, if I did a TFP shoot and the photographer didn't do their best work, or like it was uncomfortable on the day, then I'd come away being like, oh, I'm not going to do that again. And I probably wouldn't then book that person for a paid shoot, because like I've learned a lot about that person from just those few hours we've spent together. But yeah, and then a lot of TFP I do is also with friends as well, where we're both just really excited to shoot this one thing. So for me, I guess that's still TFP, but it doesn't feel like TFP. That feels more like friends hanging out. And in those cases, I probably will pay for fuel or get lunch or something.
We'll discuss about like maybe alternative payment, shall we say? Kev, what about you? Because you just mentioned that you've done a lot of TFP shoot whilst you've done photography. So share your experiences.
Yeah, it can be different. If I'm doing a TFP with someone, then it is a collaboration. So what I'm looking for out of a shoot might not necessarily be what they're looking for, but we both want to get images. So we might do images specifically that the cosplayer's got in mind, but then we'd also do images that I would have in mind. Where if it's a paid shoot, then basically I'm there to do or produce the images that the cosplayer is paying for. So that to me is a slightly different thing. So I'm not looking to get anything out of a shoot, and I won't necessarily be using those in my portfolio or going forward or for my publicity or whatever. So it can be slightly different, because it depends, because I'm not looking therefore necessarily for images that I want. Does that make sense?
That's really interesting to hear that side of it.
Yeah. So that doesn't mean I put any less effort into it. It just means that the emphasis on who's getting something from a shoot isn't the same.
I see. Yeah, that's an interesting thought to go by. I think in my mind I treat both a TFP shoot and if I ever get, someone wants to pay me, I exactly the same, because I feel like I wouldn't take a TFP shoot if I wasn't. No, that's a lie. I'll probably still do it anyway. Oh no, I feel like if you're, like you were saying, a TFP shoot, it gives you the license to say yes or no to it, whereas a paid shoot, even though you can still say no, you're more compelled to take it because it's money you may never see again.
Yeah, but I'm more thinking about the images though. You said certain times when you're being paid, you'll be doing images for maybe somebody's OnlyFans or Patreon or something like that, which might not be the sort of images you want in your portfolio.
I see what you mean now. Yeah. That's because I remember being asked to do like a cosplay boudoir shoot years ago, and I think at the time I was slightly like offish about it, like, oh, my name's gonna be attached to these photos. Am I that comfortable? So I think I tacked it the way I would do, is just try to make sure that I try to do it not a sleazy type of shoot, but as artistic as possible, so that at least I could go, hey, at least I try something different type of thing. That's an interesting viewpoint, actually. I think Lydia's quite right. It's a very interesting viewpoint. Again, we might have already crossed into this question, but I'll start with Kev.
Okay.
Some people may be hearing this and thinking, well, hang on, well, what's the difference between a TFP shoot to a Comic-Con shoot? Because, we all go to Comic-Con. I'm assuming if you're listening to this podcast, you've been to Comic-Con in some one form or another. Some of you might dress up and you go, well, what is the difference between me dressing up at a Comic-Con and me asking for a TFP shoot on location? So, Kev, shed some light. What's the difference? Is there a difference?
Yes and no. This is vague enough. Yeah. Okay. So basically, most people taking photos at a Comic-Con are doing it on a TFP basis, even if they realise they're doing it that way or not. The only thing I would say is there's lots of photographers out there at Comic-Cons who are just there taking pictures for their own personal use. That sounds a bit weird, but you might not necessarily ever see them. They might not be posted to Insta or Facebook or something like that. Whereas if you're actually arranging with a photographer for a TFP shoot, then that's a bit more formal. So in theory, you should, both going into it, know exactly, what the plan is, what pictures are you taking, how long is the shoot going to be going on for, who's going to be deciding which pictures get edited, how many edited photos you're getting out of it. I think it's a bit more structured. But that doesn't mean that what you're getting at a Comic-Con isn't TFP, because it basically is still. But I think it's just a bit more vague.
Oh, okay, yeah. I'd probably go with that, actually.
I feel like Comic-Cons in general they're just a different beast when it comes to the rules and like photography and cosplay in general, because it's like an intense 3 days where rules of society kind of go out the window almost. So like, yeah, technically they're trade for print, technically most, because you can't charge to shoot at con either, so that then adds a whole level of like issues, I guess. So yeah, and also I think a lot of people, if they hear people doing trade for print at con and doing TFP, I think that might scare off a lot of like newbie photographers. Like I started taking photos at con, so I had something to do, so I got into photography, and then like if I had heard people being like, oh, you got to do TFP at con and all these like acronyms, I would probably just never have dipped my toe in the water. So I do feel like it's very different to TFP, and also there's kind of other expectations with TFP that it will be on location, and then it's kind of like, okay, who splits the location cost, and like it's going to take a long time, and like you probably get different photos to what you'd get at con. So technically it's TFP, but I wouldn't consider it TFP. I'd consider it more like, I don't even know, not even like paparazzi, but like it's to me it's not TFP, because anyone can go to con with a camera, and like you said, like those photos you might never see. How many times have we been stopped and had a photo taken and then you just never see that photo? And I also think there's an expectation with new cosplayers now that you have to go to con, you have to book with photographers, you have to get your photos, and it's like you don't have to do all those things. You can experience con how you want to. And so I think doing contracts at con, and because there are some photographers that do make you sign contracts to shoot with them at con.
Eddie,
and I'm not talking about like, I know you do, Eddie. I don't mean like you do, where you say like this is how they're going to be released. That's slightly different. But like, I've had talks that have maybe signed contracts beforehand. I don't know. I think it's just it's not the same. But then I guess it's protecting photographers, so I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
Hang on, Kev, did you just friendly fire a shot at me?
No, because I think it's a sensible thing to do. If you're,
okay.
If you're, because right, so there's two different things going on at con, isn't there? There's people which are booking shoots in advance, with a certain expectation of what they're going to get and what the photographer's going to get, which I think then is sensible to have some sort of agreement, which is agreed and signed. And then there's people which will just walk up to a cosplayer on the day and say, "Do you mind if I take a photo?" there's going to be no contract there at all, is there? But obviously yourself, you going to con, you're going to see a lot of cosplayers. A lot of cosplayers are going to know you, so it makes more sense to have a bit more structure to it.
Oh, okay, no, because the way I think you're talking about the contract. I get people to sign at the end of the when they're about to receive their photo. So there is something. We'll circle back round to that at the end towards the end of the podcast.
Yeah,
something to hook into the listeners. Okay then. So I'll still I'll still stick with Lydia on this one then. So what are the benefits then to having a TFP shoot compared to a paid shoot? Because if we're always saying is like everyone wins, everyone gets photos or gets a model, why doesn't everyone just ask for a TFP shoot?
So for me, there's two kind of main answers. As a cosplayer, the perks of doing TFP is that I can shoot more without having to take on the additional cost. But also it means personally for me is that I can split the cost of a very cool location with the photographer. Because I don't know how it works with paid shoots, but like with TFP, we always split the cost of the location between all of us, or between me and the photographer. So it opens up the ability to shoot at better places, I guess, or places where there's a higher cost to go in. And, I get to work with photographers that I've always wanted to work with or, like working with without, again, having that cost. So for the main thing as a cosplayer is that it's the cost. And yeah, it means I can shoot more often. And also it means that I can save my money for paid shoots when I have a costume I really want to get photos with, or maybe it's, a weird niche 90s anime that nobody cares about and nobody wants to shoot. But then I can save my money and be like, right, okay, I'm going to get photos of this. But yeah, so there's I do a lot of I wouldn't say specialist, but aerial shoots and underwater shoots. They're pricey. And even if they're TFP, you still have to hire the equipment, you still have to get insurance, you have to do all that kind of stuff. So saving money where I can means I can do other stuff. And also, personally, I don't know if it's just because I've been doing location shoots for so long now. Con photography, I just think it's fun, it's nice. If you can suit the location, that's great, but it never beats a location shoot. It just doesn't.
Fair enough. Kev, is there something you want to add to that?
Yeah, well, I almost never do con photography anymore, do I?
No, true.
But yeah,
that's true to not say personal health reasons.
Partly health, but it's partly that. Yeah, as we're just saying, it's shooting at cons is not as good as shooting in the locations or even in the studio. But I was going to flip the other way and just say that there are some reasons not to shoot TFP.
Oh yeah, for sure as well. Sorry.
Yeah. So because while you're going through the good reasons for it, and off that is saving costs. When one of the disadvantages is obviously that you might approach somebody because you like their style, but they're not interested in what you've got, and they might say no. But the other one is, of course, if those images are needed for a commercial purpose. Because I think there's a question coming up about what you can and can't do with the images perhaps later on. But there are certain things where you really shouldn't be shooting TFP if that's the plan for what the images are for. So, but I'm sure we'll get to that later.
Yeah, no, that's right. Is it a good way to then, in a sense, cause this was brought up by Lydia actually, is it a good way to what's the word? Feel out a photographer's style and maybe the workflow type of thing. If you're not too sure about working with someone, if they do offer obviously TFP, is that a good way to find out if they're a good person to work with? Yeah,
like I said, I've had good and bad experiences with paid and with TFP shoots. And the togs that I've had bad experiences with, I won't work with again, and I won't go see them at con. And I know it's probably no skin off their teeth that I'm not working with them. There's probably 50 other people waiting to go, but personally, yeah, it's a bad check mark if the situation is uncomfortable or whatever reason stuff happens. And also cosplayers talk. So if I'm talking to somebody and I say, oh, I want to work with this person, and someone says, oh, I did TFP with them and this happened, That's going to put me off because, like I said, it's a community and people do talk. So yeah, like it's also helpful for working with people that are maybe new, that are still discovering their style, because it is a collaboration as well. So it's a chance for you to also maybe get photos of an old costume that you never really got great photos of, or you only got photos at con and you want to do like a location thing. It's a chance to experiment, and it's a chance to do some new things or like learn some new things without the expectation, or without the worry that you're not wasting money, but like there's less pressure, I think.
Yeah, I get that, Kev.
Yeah, it works both ways as well. You said there's unfortunately sometimes some flaky cosplayers out there as well as flaky
Yeah.
photographers. So yeah, it is a good way to see if you can build a good relationship up, which can then go on to other projects and things. But
it's also a nice way to meet people in a friendly way as well. Like, so because there isn't that paid relationship.
Yeah, because that is a completely different sort of feel to a shoot, really.
Yeah.
When it is a paid shoot, if well, as far as I feel when I'm doing them anyway, can sometimes be intimidating for a new cosplayer to start posing for pictures. And working TFP gives them the opportunity to work with a few different photographers and build up some skills. But it's also it's better really if it's a new photographer with an experienced cosplayer, or an experienced photographer with a new cosplayer, because they can get the best out of each other. Whereas if you've got an inexperienced cosplayer and an inexperienced photographer both starting out, sometimes you can get fantastic results, but it can be a lot harder because neither of you have got the experience, if that makes sense. So TFP does give you the opportunity to go to people and ask them, would you be willing to work with me? Here's a few examples of what I've done before, either as a cosplayer or as a photographer, and and try and build up some more experiences.
No, it's quite interesting what you both said, because like I said, I like working with people, and I do. I've released an article on my website that said, "Hey, if you want to shoot with me, here you go. Here are my rates." But I do put a disclaimer.
Yeah.
If you want to shoot TFP, I can, and I kind of put that there so that one, it doesn't prevent people from wanting to shoot with me, because especially this day and age with the climate and all that. I don't want to stop someone just because of money. If you've got a good idea, then then I'm happy to listen to it.
I know both Amy and Sib, which is Shill Photography and Acoustica, they have on the whole reason I met Amy Acoustica was because she had on her story that she will do discounted rates or TFP for these specific things. And she wanted to do Ghost in the Shell, and I had just finished Ghost in the Shell making Major, and I was like, oh my god, this is perfect. It's a photographer I've always wanted to work with. I've really admired her. I was like super intimidated by her, but because she had in her story that she was looking for these characters, I just DM'd her and I was like, hey, I have Major, love to work with you. And that's how we did those 2 shoots, and I went to Scotland for the day. So like that wouldn't have happened if she didn't have on her website she did TFP or discounted shoots for certain things. And like Sib Shill Photography has like Lord of the Rings, or like it's stuff that the photographer really wants to do. And having that on a highlight reel, having that just be made aware, again, opens up opportunities.
No, I get that. I totally get that. It's really interesting to hear that. It's interesting that you say it's whoever's got the most experience should be there, in a sense, like an experienced photographer, experienced model. Because I think when I first started doing photography and started doing location shoots let me rewind that. When I started doing shoots at Comic-Con and then tried to do location shoots, I remember my first, oh my god, it was with Oscar Luna. And I think we were both, I would say we were both inexperienced, both doing on location shoot as well as me shooting. And I think you're right, Kev. If I was just a little bit more experienced or had someone holding my hand type of thing, that would have been really beneficial type of thing. So yeah, I think you're right. I think not to discourage people from doing it, but if you know someone who is experienced, get them along, somehow get to work with that person so that you can learn something, one, about yourself, but also how shoots behave, at no real cost to yourself or to the other person.
Do you know what is really handy? This is kind of off topic, but for learning stuff like that, which is how I started getting good at photography, which was years ago when I first started taking my camera to con, is I shot group meets. And I'd go to the meet and I would just do individual shots of meets, because there's no expectation with meets. Like, you're lucky if you get a photo. So I could take I've taken some terrible photos, but that was my learning curve. And because there was little expectation, because this was years ago where like people weren't like modeling, they were just, I'm in my cosplay. So learning alongside somebody I found really helpful, which I guess goes against what you just said of like having one experienced person, but that's how I learned how to take photos, was just failing with a bunch of new people that also didn't know what they were doing.
But at least there was someone on that shoot who was experienced that could at least...
No, there were 6 of us in a car park under the Excel, like...
Oh, okay then.
But from there to the photos I take now, where I can say I'm actually proud of the stuff I do, and I can actually advise a cosplayer how to pose, and like, I'm now the experienced one. But there's no way that I would have been doing TFP or paid back then. It was just going to a meet and grabbing some unwilling cosplayers to be like, well, not willing, unknowing. Some willing, but yeah.
Yeah, because I think regardless if it's a paid shoot or a TFP, there is an expectation, isn't there? There is an expectation you're going to get something that's worth the time for doing it.
Yeah. Which is what I could not offer back then. But maybe I don't offer paid shoots now, but...
Do you want to stop talking by any chance?
I've stopped.
I feel like you're just digging a hole. Just dig to the centre.
I mean, I do TFP.
I just want to move it on just a little bit. And this may be a bit of a controversial thing to ask, because as photographers, we want to get paid for our work, because I think we want to get paid to be recognised for the work we do. And the effort we do, and especially with this climate now, the cost of living crisis that we're all living through, and I'll ask Kev this question: how's the best way to approach and ask about a TFP shoot if they are either offering or not offering? If that makes sense, if you've not seen anything on their page that says they do offer it, or what, whatever. Do you get what I'm saying?
What does it hurt to ask? Even if it doesn't say anything. There's a photographer I know in a different part of the country which does a lot of paid shoots with cosplayers, and does lots of editing and compositing of the images. But there's certain things he wants as well. As you were just saying earlier on about somebody having on their site a list of cosplayers or cosplayers they're interested in. Other photographers, if they're interested in cosplay, probably have that in the back of their minds as well. And if you happen to tie up with something they're interested in, who knows? But if you don't ask, you're not going to get a TFP shoot, are you? So what does it hurt to ask? They can always say no, but they could say yes.
Yeah, and before Lydia jumps in, I think I can only imagine that cosplayers or models, just in case people outside the cosplay community listen to this, if you ask for a TFP, it feels like an insult to their craft. Maybe I don't know. Lydia, does that resonate with you when you're saying that?
Well, as a cosplayer,
yeah, from a cosplayer's point of view, if you're trying to ask for a TFP, do you feel like it's harder to ask that because if they're not fully offering that, it feels like you don't recognise their craft. It's not worth money.
So I haven't asked for a TFP shoot without knowing the photographer. So either that's been paid shoots and then I've got to know them and then we've gone on to do TFP stuff, or it's been I've met them at con, we're friends, and then I'm doing TFP with them. So apart from with Amy, because she had it on her highlights, so I think I'd need either a photographer to come to me, or I'd need them to be explicit and be like, I do TFP, because otherwise I guess I just wouldn't feel comfortable. I'd wait until I had like the budget to buy a paid shoot. Or I'd shoot with them at con and then, see what happens from there and talk to them But yeah, I think it's hard over the internet. So I always think in person. Oh, so I have a story about I guess, is it a bad experience or like bad experience of like contacting somebody through the DMs. So yeah, like I said, I messaged Amy to be like, this is on your highlight, I'd love to work with you. And then we worked things out together. We found a location and it was a great time. On the flip side of that, I've had somebody come into my DMs and, you know, be really excited to work with me. And again, we like discussed what I would wear, where we would shoot. And again, it was a collaboration. And then it got to the end of that collaboration and that photographer sent me their rates. And it was completely out of the blue for me because I went into it just assuming, oh, this is TFP, this is a discussion. Like, I was willing to wear stuff that I maybe wasn't going to wear otherwise. Like, I already had photos of or whatever. So for that person to kind of just randomly be like, oh, here are my rates, I felt like turning around and being like, and here are mine. Like, I almost did. And yeah, I had to like workshop a response with my friends and be like, how do I politely tell this person I don't want to do this? Like, you've left a bad taste in my mouth. And like, yeah, so that was an example of it going wrong. I mean, if they had been upfront to begin with and been like, hey, I want to work with you, these are my rates, are you interested? Then it would have been a different conversation. But because it was like all this planning, oh, here are my rates, it was an odd situation. And like, not to pull like, I have lots of followers, but like, when somebody comes to you who's a new photographer who doesn't have a huge social media presence and then them to do that, it feels a bit like, yeah, I don't know. Yeah. And I'm not saying that someone who has big numbers can charge more or whatever, but like, if you're starting out on your journey, I feel like you need to be, yeah, I don't know where I'm going with this. I feel like this is getting really elitist. Like, I think if it's like Kevin said, like, if you're a beginner and you're working with somebody who has been doing cosplay a long time or modeling a long time, you don't come into that conversation kind of like, I don't know. I don't know how to politely, but yeah.
No, absolutely no. I think I know what you're trying to say. Basically, you're saying don't make the assumption you're offering a TFP when it's not even on the table. You've got to be very upfront about more or less straight away. I mean, like Kev says, you just got to be. You ask, and if you don't ask, you don't get. But it's also on the same vein that if you don't state what your intentions are at the beginning, it could lead to a really awful conversation towards the end.
Yeah, but also,
I was going to say, just say something like, you know, I really like your style. I've looked at your portfolio. I love your images, but unfortunately, I'm only able to work TFP at the moment. Would you be willing to work with myself on a project? You know,
yeah, even if you say like, that's out of my budget, I'll come back to you. Or like, could you work within my budget? This is my budget. What could we do for this? Like, yeah. Sorry.
No, it's fine. It's okay. I know what you're trying to say with trying to be polite about it. I mean, just to save Lydia on this, we'll move on to the next question, unless there's someone else. Anything else? No? Okay, right. Oh, okay, right, okay, okay.
Oh dear.
That's not good.
I'll start with Kev on this one.
Oh God.
I know, right? Are there any legals or etiquettes you need to be aware of or follow?
Don't edit the pictures or sell them.
God damn you! No. I mean, what I mean is
no. Yeah, okay. Basically, what I would say is that it's any shoot, regardless if it's TFP or if it's a paid shoot, you should have some agreement in place between you before you set into it. So both parties know what they can and can't do with the images and what to expect from a shoot. You know, who's going to go through because I already started talking about this right at the beginning, didn't I? You know, who's going to make the choice of which pictures are going to be edited, how many pictures you're going to get from a shoot. What are you able to do with them? Are you using them for your social medias? Are you able to use them to promote yourself if you're going to an event as a guest or something? Are you able to use these pictures to produce a calendar or produce prints that you're going to sign at your table? You know, most of those things, probably not if it's TFP. But once again, all of this needs to be agreed, you know, really before you even, you know, have a shoot. It's not something you really want to be doing and having these discussions about at a later date when somebody's received their pictures which you've done for them. They say, well, I was expecting more pictures than this, and then they've edited themselves on some sort of app, uploaded them to the internet, and then selling them on their OnlyFans or or whatever. It's there's the main thing is that it should be no different between a paid shoot or a TFP shoot, but there should be some form of agreement or contract in place.
And that also includes like the legal right of ownership of the photo. That doesn't change at all.
No, the photos usually, unless it's a very strange, would be still the ownership of the photographer. What the cosplayer normally gets is usage rights.
Yeah, and that's what this is the Wikipedia page that I might actually link this to the podcast description. It does mention that as well. So just got to be very careful that you don't think you're getting less of a right or more of a right, or these rights don't apply. They do the law still applies no matter what. I remember talking to someone else about this years ago about this, and basically, regardless if it's a verbal contract, it's still a contract. If you said you're going to be here and you're going to do it, you still got to carry it out.
It's much better to have something in writing, but it really is.
Absolutely. Just because it's not paid, no one's benefiting per se, on all money in exchange doesn't mean you can treat it any lesser of a contract compared to a paid shoot.
No, there's still a benefit. The benefit is the pictures, and the time which has been given for those pictures. So there's still a trade. It's just it's not cash. So if there's still a trade, then you still should have a contract.
Absolutely.
I think this is why con does fall out of it, because I think a lot of people who get their photos taken at con or work with photographers don't realise the legal implications of getting photos at con. Like, just because you've got it at con and it's con floor or it's in front of the grey walls, that doesn't mean that you can then sell prints. It doesn't mean you can put them on your Patreon and things like that. And I think a lot of cosplayers aren't aware of I think a lot of photographers as well maybe aren't aware of the kind of legal agreement that you do enter in when you take photos at con. Because I guess we don't really think about it. But then you get people like the Daily Mail turn up and everyone gets mad when the Daily Mail uses their photo. And it's like, well, no, you've given up your rights. Like, I think people aren't just aware. It doesn't enter into their consciousness of this is something that you should be aware of.
I think if somebody comes up to you at the con and says, oh, do you mind if I take your picture? I really like your cosplay. How often do you then turn around and say, what are you going to do with the photos?
Yeah,
that doesn't often happen, does it? You just say, oh, yeah. But you might ask, oh, where will I be able to see them? But, I don't think it often comes up, are these going into a newspaper? Or are these going to go onto a website or something?
If you then scrape that picture from the Daily Mail and put it on your OnlyFans or your Patreon, again, you're kind of contravening the agreement you didn't know that you got into. But, like, what's to stop you doing that? I think there's just a lack of not understanding, but, like, I don't know, people just don't think about it because it's gone.
Yeah, and you've just given your right for your image to be taken and used however you like, but to the person taking the photo.
No, I'm just trying to think what else to add, but there's nothing more to add really, because like I said, I'm not saying I have an ulterior motive when I record these podcasts. It's not that I have an idea of how the narrative goes. Obviously, I'm host. I do direct the conversation to a certain way, but this is the one thing I want to let people know that I just think that there is a slight notion that you thought that the TFP is a lesser type of shoot. It's not. It's the exact same. It's still got the same structure as a paid shoot. It's just you both of you are benefiting from it, and I just think people just forget that from time to time.
If you're on a TFP shoot and the photographer or the cosplayer is treating it differently to a normal shoot or paid shoot, that's a red flag. Like, don't be working with that person. Either way, even if the cosplayer is turning up late or they haven't delivered on what they promise, and if the photographer's being strange or like not doing the work or in some cases arrived drunk,
what?
they're like, that's a red flag, and you should just be like, okay, this person isn't respecting my time or what we agreed.
I I've been to a shoot before where the people we're shooting were so drunk it was just a complete waste of my time.
Yeah, it happens. So like, and that's the thing where I said like those are people I will never work with again.
Absolutely.
Because just because it's TFP does not mean like Kevin said that it's still benefiting. It's just that cash is not being exchanged, and so you should treat it exactly as you would a paid shoot.
But to be fair, I've actually been on I wouldn't say a paid shoot. I went onto a session that I paid for I think at the time 4 or 5 models to turn up for me to shoot, and only 2 turned up. The person running it didn't turn up.
Oh my god!
She sent her regards by saying a medical incident happened, I think, for her boyfriend at the time, or her boyfriend's mother. That's it, or something like that. Some of us did a investigation and looked at social media. She went partying the night before.
Jeez.
So I'm just saying, even with a paid shoot, doesn't mean you guaranteed a better professionalism.
Yeah.
So I just want to share that story.
I've had paid experiences as well, which is why I don't think there's no, not that there is any shame, but there's no difference in doing trade or paid, and there shouldn't be.
100%, yes, 100%. Where are we up to? Oh god.
That doesn't be well for us.
I know, right? I'll start with Kev for this one.
Oh no. Was it me first again?
Because you're the resident photographer who knows more than I do.
Okay.
Again, this is a very specific question why I'm asking this. Hey, Kev, can you sell TFP work, photography work?
I think I just said that. No.
No.
Well, honestly, it depends on if somebody has given you permission. Yeah, as I said, there should be an agreement beforehand of what you can and can't do with the pictures. But the whole point of this is that you should both be benefiting the same from the images. So if you're both taking pictures for portfolios, then they're for portfolios. If you want to take pictures, if the person's aim of a shoot is to generate income for themselves, then really that's not TFP. They should be paying a commercial rate for those pictures. So if it is for a Patreon or for a OnlyFans, then that's not really TFP, because their purpose of that shoot is a commercial purpose.
Absolutely. So can you in this case, can you convert a TFP shoot after the event? So
Absolutely.
let's say
that's different. Okay, so in the contract it will say what I normally have on mine is that you can use the either the photographer or the subject can use the pictures for their social media, but if they're for any other purpose, then they need to negotiate a new contract for that purpose. So then I have contracts for usage agreements for things like producing A4 prints and over a certain period of time, and things like that. So there's nothing to stop you reaching a different negotiation or a different agreement to do something else with the images at a later date. But by default, if you want to sell something, then you should be paying for something.
Before Lydia chimes in, something that was chatted about earlier in the podcast. So after I've taken photos at a Comic-Con, I actually send out a usage agreement, as I call it, to everyone who I shop with. Now, obviously, as someone who following the law of saying these are my photos, if they don't, I keep the photos no matter what, and I use it as I wish, as the owner of the photos. But if I share it out to someone, I kind of wanted, and I think I've said this before, I just want to educate them to say, this is how I expect photos to be used. And I hope when people read it, they go, oh shit, this is not how I don't treat all photographers the same. I think, I didn't mean to do this for someone else's photographer. Maybe this is something that I should be aware of. So that's why I do those usage agreement, or maybe something that I thought someone might be aware of, or I should know better, and yet they still do that. And I'm going, am I a soft touch or something like that? Am I a walking doormat type of thing? So I kind of have that usage that people understand. And it does say if you want to use this in any sense of like commercialism, if any money exchange in any way from the use of my photos, we need to talk about this because you owe me money type of thing. And for me, it's a very easy conversation I have with people, who have that with me. So, like Leif said, it's not something that if it's a TFP, it sticks to a TFP. You can change it up and it can become something else. Lydia, before you chime in with your one, when you first got my usage not say contract, but usage link for the first time, the summary before you signed it to get your photos back. Did you think it was a shocking thing to see, or did you think that was a good idea, or what?
Well, I mean, I'm again not the best example or person to ask because I've been doing shoots for a long time and I've worked with photographers that have used those before. So to me, it wasn't shocking. Although I have to say, as a photographer, when I read all the bit about like don't use filters and if you want to change stuff, come back to me, that was quite nice because I was like, oh, someone is out here telling cosplayers that they shouldn't be doing that. So that was quite nice. But no, yeah, it didn't surprise me at all. And like I said, I've had contracts before to shoot with people at con. But those have been slightly different because they felt like actual contracts, which I thought was a bit like overkill for a con. But again, I guess if you're protecting your work and your livelihood, that's fine. But it wasn't shocking to me. It was just like, okay, this is the thing I got assigned to get my photos. Makes sense. I agree. Because it protects you and it also protects me as a cosplayer that, if I did something with the photos and you were like, oh, you're not allowed to do that, I could be like, well, actually, it's not in your contract, so I can. Not that I would, but
no.
Found the loophole.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, whilst I remember, Kev, as us photographers, if let's say we took a picture of Lydia and we both, either you or I went, oh my God, this is a really good photo. I really want to sell it. As a photographer myself, do I need to let Lydia know that I'm selling it from a TFP shoot?
Well, in my document, it says that neither of us can do anything which, like that without the permission and the negotiation. So, the contract isn't just to protect me, it's to protect them as well. So yes, mine might be a little bit more formal, but but it says everything both ways. So we can use it on social media, we can use it to promote ourselves. We can't use it to promote other events without somebody signing off of it, and we can't use them to generate revenue without getting an agreement with each other. So it's not just about saying they can't do it; it's about saying I won't do it either.
Yeah.
So that's my feel about it, but it's only fair. If I'm saying they can't, why should I be able to?
Absolutely. I just want to make that point. I mean, obviously, I'm in a roundabout way. I forced Kev to give the answer because I knew the answer, but it's more that, I don't want to sound like it's very biased towards photographers that they're protected more than over models. It's both sides are equally protected in this fair trade for print type of thing. We're getting quite close to the end of the podcast, so I want to wrap it up with this one. Well, I wouldn't say one-liner, but with this one. And I'll start with Lydia with this one. Is there something which you would advise people when dealing with TFP or asking about TFP or approaching a photographer for TFP?
I think doing your research. I think I give that as advice every time I'm on a podcast, no matter what the setting is. But make sure you're working with somebody that you want to work with, that you trust, and that you're going to get what you want, and go into it with expectations of, okay, this is what I'm going to get out of it. Make sure you know what you're doing. Just expectations, and make sure that you just make sure you have everything's in agreement before you do anything. Just be kind of polite, be nice. It's a mutual collaboration. That's how I view it. So make sure that at the end of it that you've got what you wanted, but the photographer's also got what they wanted. I'm just rambling again as usual, but yeah, I was doing so well. Do your research. Make sure you are doing what you want to do and like getting what you want out of it.
Yeah.
No,
I get that. No, that's fine. Kev, what about you?
No, the same. There shouldn't be any reason to have unexpected outcomes. As long as everything's agreed beforehand and you all know what's happening, and what each party expects from the shoot, then there's absolutely nothing wrong with doing TFP. Some people say that it devalues because you're not paying for something, but does it really? If you're both getting something out of it, then I have no problem with TFP. I don't think it devalues anything at all.
I think it's funny that people would say it devalues stuff, because if you're a photographer with no portfolio, no one's going to hire you anyway. So you are getting something out of it, or you're paying for models. I don't know. I guess I just think it's funny that people might look down on TFP as being like, oh, I'm a real photographer, I don't do TFP. And it's like, okay, maybe you are, but
some cosplayers like that as well.
yeah, the same thing. Yeah, so cosplayers as well being like, oh yeah, I have so many horror stories about just things. But yeah, that some cosplayers think they're too big to pay for shoots, or too big for anything. So
yeah, no, I totally understand that. I just want to add on top of all of that. Well, I think it's been mentioned, but like communication, just make sure, like you said, what's been agreed, what's been make it known very quickly, very early on, that it's TFP and things like that. State your intentions really, and but also don't be afraid to offer maybe something else in return. Like you'd offer, look, if you come to me, I'll offer to pay for your petrol, things like that, because that is equally as valuable than money itself. I've been on a few TFP shoots where, I've not been offered a drink, but sometimes when I have been offered a drink, I go, oh my God, this has been a godsend. This is something that it helps me recharge my batteries and off I go type of thing. So
it's also nice to kind of relate to that if you're doing TFP to cover the cost of location sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, is that still TFP then, Kev?
I'm just trying to think. There's been times when I did a TFP shoot, and the mother of the person I was shooting paid for entry to Warwick Castle. So, but the shoot was still TFP. It's just she paid to get us both in. So I would still say that was TFP.
Okay.
Yeah, I feel like that comes under getting fuel for the photographer, or stuff like that. I mean, you don't have to do that, and it's not expected, I guess. But that's, I feel like, the photographer's giving up their time and their energy. If it's a relatively cheap location, I'll just cover it, unless it's expensive or there's a lot of us. But yeah, that's also another way. If you're unsure of doing TFP, organize a day. Get a bunch of cosplayers and reach out to a few photographers and say, look, we've got this together. Would you be interested? You'd be surprised how many photographers would want to do that, because it means they get quite a lot of cosplayers in a short amount of time. And it's still TFP. It's just kind of split across a lot of you.
Yeah, that's a good idea. As a good plan, and I think I've seen you do that from time to time, which is always great.
Doing one in the summer, Eddie. Come along, it'll be great.
Oh yeah. Go on then. Go on. Put my name down.
Are you sure? It's gonna be JoJo. I'm gonna say. I don't know if JoJo's your thing.
What, JoJo Bizarro?
Yeah.
Oh shit.
You said yes. I've got it on record. Eddie is shooting my JoJo meet.
Nah, seriously, I will do it actually.
Look in the studio. It's gonna be a fun time.
Go. We'll talk after the podcast. Don't talk on the podcast, and then hordes of people just don't go, "Hey, Lydia, you said we can TFP your shoot."
Oh. Yeah, sure. DM me. It'll be fine. If I leave you on red, that's completely unrelated to anything else.
Oh, amazing. And I think let's put an end to this conversation before Lydia puts her foot in it any further. Thank you guys for chatting about TFP. It's been, as I always say, it's educational, and it's great to hear other people's opinion about this.
It's always a pleasure.
Thank you, Kevin. Lydia, where can they find you on the social medias?
Oh, I am Celery Moon Designs on Instagram, Facebook, and Tumblr, and I am Broken Phone Girl on Twitter.
Cool. Kev, where can they find you on the social medias?
kevinpack.com or cosplay.co.uk. Is probably the two easiest places. Or on the Insta, I'm Kev_Pack.
Amazing. If people need to find me on the social medias, if you go to foodandcosplay.org/links, that's where you'll find them. Which goes to like Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. I think there's others as well, such as Patreon. So if you go to patreon.com/foodandcosplay, you can help donate some money to this. I know times are tough, especially with electricity prices, gas prices, and all that. But if you can afford it, great. If not, don't worry about it. If you go to foodandcosplay.org generally, you'll find daily cosplay photos and articles that I write. There's all me. It's all written by me, ish. And then if you go to foodandcosplay.org/podcast, you can find previously recorded podcasts with Lydia and Kev separately.
The last one was a train wreck. Don't listen.
The last one was a train from you, not from Kev. Kev was
no, the one from Kev was fine. I was sick the last one, and I could not tell you a single thing I said in that podcast. So, and I've listened to it. So,
do you recognise that day? Do you recognise what you said that day?
No. I remember it was Kitty with is it Catherine? Kitty cosplay.
Yeah.
And we talked about squirrels, and that's all I can say.
Oh, Jesus Christ. What else do I say at this point? No, I think that's it, really. I keep forgetting to mention this. If you don't know if you didn't catch any of the links, I'll put it into the cosplay description, podcast description, either lip sync or on the foodandcosplay.org website. So go there if you need the links to our pages. And on that note, as much as I'm now rambling and just falling over my own words, I just want to say thanks to Kev and Lydia for being on this podcast.
Thank you.
And on that note, I'm going to say goodbye. I'm going to say goodbye, and they're going to say goodbye. So bye, guys.
Bye.
Oh, I did get my teeth out.
I feel like that's the most sensible podcast I've been on.
do you know when Andy went very quiet and it felt like he'd fallen asleep?
Yeah.
He was posting into bloody Facebook Messenger because a little picture popped up.
I got called out. Kevin with the receipt.